Well, hello there. It would be handy if the camera could actually go into work. There's better. Thank you very much. Greetings and salutations. I'm just looking for some appropriate background music to put on. Skip that. Thank you very much. Just go straight into music. Groovy. There you go. Fantabulous. Happy hump day, everybody. What are we doing today? Well, I'm Titan weaponry. I was hoping to have some more stuff where I ordered off of eBay the other day, but unfortunately it doesn't seem to have turned up. And like always, I'm now just doing everything last minute to share. Copy link, share, hops, and punk. Nope, that's the wrong thing. So we are doing really well so far. Ba, ba, ba. That will do, so I can't be bothered anywhere else. I heard that humming and got here as fast as I could. How do you turn that, dude? Bit warm. Not gonna lie, it's a bit warm out. I've you can see this is through shower, not dampness. So yeah, I'm clean and fresh. I was prepping this, but realise I'm missing a part. But maybe, how do I Gundam? You little leg, you. I may have just remedied that situation. That is not too bad. So it's all about making do. Time to combine with Gundam. Oh, can you imagine that though? That'd be bonkers. There's a little Cross the Streams versus Warlord crossed with an Urban Mech, the Mayhem. Urban Mech, bloody hell. That's a really bad idea. Actually saw before coming on, there's a local sort of like game cafe near to where I work, and they've actually put out an ad on their Facebook, not Facebook, Instagram, that they're got the oh fuck it, that's better. Yeah, fuck it, we're doing that. We're doing it that way. Stop pissing about. I don't know now. Yeah, sorry. So yeah, the Gundam card game released this Friday. So doing it £15 for a ticket, but that's including starter deck. So I might actually nip on down, he says. Be interesting to find out, because obviously I've got the game, well, not games, I've got two of the pieces already I picked up from UK Games Expo. Oh no, it's a card game, isn't it? It's not a game. Ah, shit. It's a card game. No, I don't know. No. That's dangerous. Although you can use the pieces with, oh god. Tempted or not a card person. That's the thing, it's like you just start collecting more stuff. I don't really need more stuff. I've got enough as it is. Say the sensible voice, the magpie and the shinies. No, it gets the shinies, yeah. And a plastic panda. How are you? We were just saying this weekend, the Gundam card game is hitting, apparently. And a local place to me is doing like an event, £15 a ticket, but that's including a starter deck as well. And I was like, do I get involved in another game that I'm not really going to be playing, although it's got cool card art. It is like, as Kenny was saying, the magpie situation. Do you give up and go for it? No, I can't. Hey, Stokesy. You know, buddy, how are you? Thank you for dropping by. Always a pleasure, never a chore. Let's try to get that straightened with our make-do weapon barrel, because the real one is walkabouts. I'm fine painting testers for Death Guard Loyalists right now. Cool. That was my first Heresy paint job, which was Death Guard. And I was doing Loyalists. And unfortunately, because they, in my mind, at the time, I couldn't take Death Shrouds, because Death Shrouds were the bodyguard of Mortarion, and they were never more than 49 feet away from the Primarch. So it felt wrong that there'd be Loyalist Death Shroud. So I just kiboshed that idea. I painted up a tester model, really liked the scheme, but I put it to one side. And went on to do Mechanicum instead, which, you know, I've not been disappointed with at all. Not too bad. How's things with you? Yeah, apart from the heat, because it's getting hotter, obviously. Not too bad myself. I did some writing today, Stokesy. Basically, when I was off yesterday and I was modding for Millie Paints, I thought, well, what am I doing? I'm sitting here, you know, watching the stream, making sure there's no shenanigans, and I thought, you know, I think I'll just look from a drawer, and I knew that I had a Lancer that I had acquired. It'd been built by somebody else, but I thought, oh, I'll paint that. So I asked Millie in the chat what her favourite two colours were, and she replied, well, first of all, she went, oh, that's such a hard question to ask, sort of thing. But then she did actually come back with red and purple. So I spent the rest of the stream painting a red and purple knight. So that's the one I posted up on Instagram earlier on today. You just focused a minute ago, you fucker. Always have to do this. It's so annoying. Jesus, monkeys. Right, configure video, camera control, focus. What I'll do, right, it is like Divine, but Divine is obviously pink and purple, which I have got House Divine, so I did think that, but I kept it deliberately sort of away from that as much as possible. So went with Khorne red and then Mephiston red afterwards as a highlight layer. Xerxes purple, and then I washed that with Drushi violet as well, just to seal it in a bit better. There's Corax white on the pad and the head, and then that's all been washed over. So this is Heart of Flame from the House Orthrus. Get off. So I did my which Legio is this for? That's not. Well, this is going to be basically it's in a way a free blade, but it's from the House Orthrus. I basically painted it all gold and then filled in the white. So that's what I do with trim. You do the trim colour and then you fill it in. It's easier for me, and then you just do some touching up afterwards. Um, so yeah, so that's this little chap. So the background I wrote for it, if I can find it. Right. Okay, Richard, are we sitting comfortably? So, House Orpheus, house from the world of Susinum. Susinum is a verdant world, lush with forests, vast green plains, and majestic mountain ranges beneath a golden amber sky where many species of animal life thrives there. A world of spectacular beauty, it survived the solitude of old night fairly unscathed compared to other worlds of humanity's expansion during the dark age of technology. Milicia Rufus, along with her husband Samiel, rule House Orpheus together. Its sigil, which is there, is a two-headed canid. Reflects the character of their household as protectors and being hunters. The majority of the knight suits are of the Cerastus class, most commonly the Lancer configuration, as you can see. During the Great Crusade, the hunt packs would rove out ahead of the main Imperial forces during any compliance action in a heavy scout formation, their suits loping ahead before the reporting back to about enemy forces' locations before going to ground or slinking around the flanks or of the enemy to attack them from the side or the rear, once action had been joined by their allies. Because of their skill at mobile warfare, they had served alongside the 3rd, the 5th and the 16th Legions on more than several expeditions and had close ties amongst those legions' commanders. Though once the heresy began, the lances that may have been with the above legions tended to side with them, whilst the homeworld itself remained loyal to the throne world, which I've just realised I spelt that wrong, as in throne world. This situation would change as Susinum escaped the worst of the heresy until it was visited by an assault force from the 12th Legion, the World Eaters. They assaulted several of the world cities, purging all before them, and they came across, and building monuments from the skulls of their victims once they had cleansed the cities of all life. House Orpheus defended their world from these bloodthirsty monsters as well as they could, but after several weeks of fighting, help came in the form of the returning lances from the expeditionary fleets. Once they had heard their home was under attack from the War Master's forces, the lances left to defend their homes. The lances that had sided with the traitor legions finally seen the truth of the heresy and was sickened at the betrayal of their loyalty. Their ships, along with several other army units they had gathered to them en route, smashed through the blockading fleet before descending onto the surface and joining their brethren in charging down the enemy forces, making them pay for every innocent life they had murdered upon their homeworld. Once the enemy was eradicated, those that had sided with the traitors took an oath of repentance, where they would wear their shame, engaging in the most dangerous of missions until deemed worthy to once again wear the full panoply of their household. Their honour regained in the eyes, and their honour regained in the eyes of their brethren. The loyalist forces that accompanied the returning knights were given the offer of sanctuary and were welcome to make Susinum their home if they so wished. I did put another bit which I haven't got on here because I sent it over to Millie and just said, like, yeah, I had a quiet morning. But yes. Story time. Settles in the bed. Where's the rest of the shield? See, that's the thing. As I was saying, I didn't build this, and the person that did was opting for something different. So they cut off the pieces and just left that there. So yeah, that happened. But to be honest, I don't mind it too much. I did think about maybe trying to do some sort of, well, I thought about it. I'm not going to do it, but thought about just doing some sort of like electrical impulse. So it's like it's an energy shield, so it just needs points to energize. So yeah, it's okay. It's different, um, but I can imagine it works. You know, it has a shield emitter. Um, but yeah, so that's the background of House Orthrus. Um, Majority loyalists, some of them were traitors, but then they came back when they realised, hey, why are they attacking our homeworld? We're on their side. Um, but yeah, you know, such is life. All right, that's good. So that still moves. Oh, but thank you very much. I was again, it was just when I get into that headspace to write stuff, then I write stuff because I need to scratch that itch. So itch has been scratched. Ah, right. I shook all that earlier, and it's still warm, and I just need something to stick it in. And now, shut a talented individual. Border dash. I say it only works when I'm in the zone. If I'm not in the zone, nothing comes out. Alright, I'm just going to quickly spray this weapon. Weapon sprayed. Close that. I'm looking forward to writing more lore. So the thing is with lore, alright, especially like with Warhammer stuff, you can't go to like OTT sort of thing. Like I've been in like writing groups before of like, you know, Warhammer fans and stuff like that. Oh, pardon me. And like there was years ago, there was a group writing project that became quite popular, which was the Dornian heresy. So it was written from the perspective that Rogel Dorn was the one that went traitor and not Horus. And they sort of like, you know, there's a load of writing on it. You can find it on the interwebs and stuff. Have a read, and it was, you know, quite well received and very popular. But I got in group, like another group got involved, and they thought, why don't we do the same thing but with Sanguinius and call it the Sanguinian heresy? So I was involved in that as sort of like a contributor towards it. However, I got a little bit nonplussed by it because all they were doing was basically saying, okay, we'll have Sanguinius, and then we'll have, you know, which one should we make loyalists, which one make loyalists. Not doing like a direct swap around, but all the key points of the Horus heresy were basically repeated in the Sanguinius heresy. And my point of that is like, it wouldn't be the same. You know, Sanguinius never went to like Istvan beforehand. Why would they go to Istvan? You know, if the word bearers aren't involved, because obviously they were part of the manipulation. You know, they wouldn't do that, and Cygnus Prime wouldn't happen. This place wouldn't happen. Why don't you just like not regurgitate all these key points in the Horus Heresy and do it from a different perspective and changing up the forces? Why don't you just create your own? Because Sanguinius isn't going to fight wars the same way as Horus, same way as Russ isn't going to fight the same way as Horus or Sanguinius, and so on and so forth. So yeah, it's all right if you want to do a tipsy-turvy, flippy-roundy sort of heresy, but from a different legion taking over and going that way. But you've got to put your head into that legion and know a bit about that legion's origins, or what they do, like what they did during the Great Crusades. So that gives you, because that will be the same going up there. Because you've got to have a reason. Why would Sanguinius turn traitor? You know, is it always going to be the anathema blade that sort of puts him into a weakened state, and then you sort of like with your brain? But his character's not the same as Horus. Horus has that ego and that sense of righteousness, justice, or whatever that they corrupted and manipulated. And he had the ego, and that was the thing. You know, the thing that sort of really tipped him over was seeing the statues of the loyalist Primarchs. You know, that was the thing that really sort of like ground his gears. It's like, well, why is there no tributes to Horus? And not even thinking that, oh, because you're the one who's basically made them the icons they are because of your heresy. So with that, you've got a whole sandbox to play in. Don't be lazy. Create the stuff. Change it. It's not going to be the same wherever you're going for whatever you're aiming for. And the other thing is, every motion, every cause has an effect, or opposite effect, sort of thing. So if you do this over here, then that's going to allow that person to do something over there. You've got to look on the macro scale as well as the minute scale, because you're juggling 18 superhuman legions plus all the Imperial Army assets and stuff, and you've got to give them reasons, right? You know, that's the main thing. Why would that particular Primarch throw it all in? What has turned his head so much? You know, we know what turned Horus's head because there's a whole book series about it. But what would, because when you think about it, Sanguinius was the one held above most. You know, all the Primarchs liked him, sort of thing. I think the easiest Primarch to sort of go against would be, to sort of use as a heresy would be Guilliman, because he's already got the 500 worlds to recruit from, and if he so wished it, sort of thing, he could get literally double the size of his legion in a matter of years, because he does that. He basically rebuilds it from the losses from that they suffered from the start of heresy. He rebuilds it, so at the time of the siege, he's at full strength. And imagine if you had Guilliman and a couple of the others, like the Unremembered Empire. If you had those three legions at full strength, so Dark Angels, Blood Angels, Guilliman, that's a hell of a fucking force to be fighting against. Because you straight off the bat, you're looking 500 at least 550,000 Astartes, plus all their support, because you've got the most organised motherfucker in the galaxy in Guilliman, getting everything built and supplied and all those routes set out. You've got one of the greatest strategic minds in the Lion, and you've got one of the iconic Primarchs that everybody loves in Sanguinius at the front of it, sort of thing. So that would be like, that's quite a hefty sort of force to start with, and then you like, you know, you can add others into it. Mentioning Unremembered Empire, I wonder if the Blood Angels and Dark Angels went poaching on Gooderman's private reserve. Ultramar Blood Angels. Well, possible. But then obviously Ultramar goes right up near to Blood Angel territory anyway. Like Honorum, where the Nova Marines is in that side of things. It's not a million miles, well, it actually is more than a million miles away from Baal, but it's like one of the closest territories. But at the time of the heresy, Honorum wasn't really a thing, I don't think, because obviously Nova Marines took that. But Ultramar was a huge like swathe of the Eastern Galaxy. You know, that's a whole segmentum which belonged to the Ultramarines. Well, pretty much belonged to the Ultramarines. So just reloading. But yeah, so writing it from like a perspective that you've got those three legions as your base. So what is their cause? Why would they go against the Emperor? You know, what is it that cultivate? And it could be something like they lost contact with, because they lost, you know, Warpstorm comes up, blocks the Astronomicon, and maybe over the course of years, because of its being shut off, nobody can contact Terra, that the Unremembered Empire comes into being, and it all kicks off. Because, you know, everyone's second guessing everything. People think that Terra has been lost, and they, you know, go from there. Don't know. Obviously, there's always certain things, because it depends on when that actually happens as well. Because, like, with the Dark Angels, does Luther end up being sent back to Caliban to ferment? He's on his stuff. Does all that shiz happens? You know, Cygnus Prime doesn't happen because of the connections that aren't in play. Because it's not Horus, it's not Davin, it's not him playing amongst things. You know, they could be the loyalist parts, and they're going against like the base ones, like the World Eaters. You know, because you have got like World Eaters, Iron Warriors, Night Lords. They're not particularly sort of like, you know, good guys in general. You know, so yeah, you've got a whole host of reasons. You've got to have a legitimate reason as to why one of these superhuman badasses would go against the Emperor. You know, it's a whole different thing, and they're just misunderstood. Yeah, totally, absolutely misunderstood. It's you've got to have a reason for somebody doing what they did, and what was the cause for that change. So I would always suggest, like, you'd read obviously all the timelines leading up during the Great Crusade, up until Monarchia, sort of thing. Or maybe, you know, things were different. Like maybe Monarchia didn't happen. You know, you got to find a point where you can exploit to progress your plan for world domination with your heresy, and figure out why. Like the Rangdang genocides. What did they have an impact? All these little things. You can't just go, Dave the Primarch decided to turn his back on the Emperor because he thought he smelt of cheese and he was lactose intolerant. Yeah, if Angron didn't receive the nails, exactly. You know, for a Primarch to be like the only Primarch not to actually take over his world and to be captured. Well, admittedly, he was very young, but even a child Primarch, as Korax proved, is fucking lethal. Because I think Korax was like a 10, 11-year-old boy. It looked like a 10, 11-year-old boy, and he ripped the fucking head off of those fucking prison guards on Lycaea when they sort of found him. He was just standing there with the light shining off his pale skin and blood across him, sort of thing. And a very badass looking scene. So, like, you know, he'd grown in his incubator, and when he was found, he was, you know, akin to a 10-year-old boy, but, or maybe a bit younger, like maybe 8 to 10, something like that. I can't. It was a long time since I read Deliverance Lost, but that's the thing. Like, even as a child, they've got better mental faculties and abilities to a standard human. Where you normally think, oh, he's a like little kid, I'll just go over there and bust his head with my club, and then he just like beats you to death with it. So subduing a Primarch, even if it's a child, would be quite tricky. But it just depends on the circumstances. Like, was Angron's tube, because I haven't read the Angron book, so I don't know how they captured him. So it's a little bit, you know, I am a bit of speculation. I can only assume, because I know that there was one of the Primarchs, because there was like somebody had a vision of Primarchs emerging from their incubated tube thingies when they crashed on whatever planet they'd crashed on, and one of them did come out and he had like blood upon them. Yeah, I just saw your message, Kenneth. Angron, I believe, and then he slew Eldar that attacked him. You know, the lion lived in a fucking forest for a few years on a death world and fucking killed fucking monsters or whatever, or evaded them for God knows how long. So yeah, it's a bit weird, but when you've got something like the butcher's nails, you know, hammered into your skull, that makes you feel really good when you kill. That's always an issue. It's always going to be an issue. Yeah, no worries, mate. We'll be here. Yeah. So this is going to be for one of these guys. So these are my Legio Fortidus, and unfortunately at the time I got into these, all I had available were volcano cannons. So they're all standardly kitted out with volcano cannons and apox. So I needed some variation, hence the Sun Fury. Let's put you over there to inspire. Right. Right. So we need to make some yeah. So I collected the books, and it wasn't until like the last few of the Heresy series that I switched over to audiobooks. So so like special edition ones, I sort of got most of the Siege of Terror books. I didn't actually. Well, I've got a couple on hardback, so especially Echoes of Eternity, because obviously my Titan's in it, so it kind of needed to buy that. And I bought it in hardback, so it's actually where that white Gundam is. Above that is where Echoes of Eternity sits, on the top shelf. So yeah, there's one book that I haven't read out that series. Well, I hadn't finished it, and that was Damnation of Pythos, which is probably the hardest book to actually read. It's a shame, really, because there was a short story beforehand, which I now cannot, for the life of me, remember the name of it. Oh, Veritas Ferrum. It was a little audio book, little audio story that I picked up one year, and it tells of a Iron Hands, strike cruiser called the Veritas Ferrum that arrives at Isstafan as everything is blowing up, because there's a huge space battle above Isstafan 5, because all the loyalists in the drop site massacre So, for Richard's benefit, welcome back, Kenneth. Basically, when Horus and his nearest and dearest turned traitor and betrayed their legions at Isstvan 3, a message got out with the Death Guard captain Nathaniel Garrow, who got warned of the betrayal and basically escaped to tell the Emperor. And eventually the message got out, and the new War Master for the Loyalists, who was named as Rogel Dawn, was put in charge, and he got organised the Retribution Fleet, which was going to be 7 legions to go to Isstvan and to basically bring Horus and his friends to heel for their betrayal. Unfortunately, 4 of the 7 legions that were sent out there had already turned, but they didn't know that. Well, the Dawn didn't know that. And so they said, yeah, we'll go there. And so the 3 Loyalist legions, who inadvertently landed first, got stuck into the traitors and was having a grand old time of things. And then they were lifted to see dropships of the Iron Warriors, the Alpha Legion, the Word Bearers, and Night Lords coming down as well, because they've been having a good old ding dong, and they thought, well, we need to recover and rearm and re-equip and let these other new guys take some of the fun. And as they're sort of going back to their beachheads to rearm, they start getting shot at by these 4 new arrived legions, and thus it was the Drop Site Massacre, because the vast majority of the Loyalist Astartes that were there got butchered. So the majority of the Salamanders, who were the Loyalists, most of them were killed. They died horrendously. The Iron Hands was only the faster elements of the Iron Hands fleet. So because their ships were sort of a bit slower, Ferrus Manus, their Primarch, said, fuck you guys, you catch up later. So he only took the fast elements, so like a third of his fleet with him, and so a third of his legion. And the Raven Guard were at the time the smallest legion, because they'd had some heavy losses in a bit of a dodgy siege situation, which they were ordered to do a frontal assault, which is not their style. Anywho, the Salamanders, 97% of the Salamanders were wiped out. So if there was 100,000, the vast majority of them were killed. Some of them escaped to get onto drop ships, to launch, get onto their bigger ships and pull out. The rest of the Iron Warriors turned up, Iron Hands, turned up and started engaging. And Veritas Ferrum was one of these strike cruisers that turned up, realised what the fuck is going on, shot a few ships, and then thought, let's get the fuck out of here, and escaped after taking on some survivors. And they go on to the book that is The Damnation of Pythos, which is them landing on a death world and fighting giant lizards and stuff. And it's not some people like it. I'd say 97% of people really don't give a fuck. The Veritas Ferrum does have a part to play later on in the story, but yeah, it's meh. So you had a bright start with Veritas Ferrum short story. Damnation of Pythos, not so much. And then it turns up again in one of the later books where you've got the Blood Angels and Dark Angels trying to break through the warp storms surrounding Ultramar. As I said, you're one of the 3%. Most of the people that I've spoken to, they don't like it, or they give up on it. But there are some, and I say, like, you know, everyone's choice, but it's the only book that I haven't managed to finish. That said, I did struggle a little bit with A Thousand Suns, and that was Graham's one. And I kind of like Graham's stuff, but I did struggle with that one. To be fair, blow dry. Do you think it got too big for its own good? Not so much. It's like, the thing is, like, everyone goes, oh, we know how it ends. I said, yeah, we know how it ends, but it's the journey, how it went from A to B to C to D to E, sort of thing. But there are some books which are filler. There's probably several like web pages that says this is the order you should read it in, you know, preferred reading order. And there's probably some books that you can basically just ignore because they don't really add anything to the actual overall arc and plot, sort of thing. So, but there are obviously quite a few books which do, basically. Oh, for sure, Pythos was filler. Yeah. Well, it was a new author, David Annandale, I believe it was. I think it was David Annandale. So, you know, they hit gold with Aaron because he's a really good writer, but he is incredibly he takes time with his work, and he's always like, he's got a good team of people that, like, you know, proofread and stuff, and he's always constantly, you know, working on it. So it's not that he's slow in writing, it's that he wants it to be the best that it can be. And that's why his books are some of the best written. And also the characters are so much more you know, you can't help but like get on side with them. And I'm not saying that because, you know, I know the guy. I'm just being honest. I enjoy his writing a lot more than the other authors, because I can get behind it. I can lose myself in it. Like, I can still remember where I was reading. It was the short story they done, which was later on included in First Heretic. I was actually having physio for sciatica, and I remember I was sitting in that waiting room and I was like reading this story, which I said they incorporated it into First Heretic. So it's like they got him to write a little short story thing, and it was so well received that they said, hey, would you like to write a book about these guys? And they went, yeah, sure, cool. And he did. And most people quite like the First Heretic because it's, you know, a really well written book that, you know, gives you Argyle Tal, for one, which people love, as a character, and, you know, the creation of why the Word Bearers did what they did, and makes them understandable and relatable why they chose the path that they did, you know. So that's what you want when you get a book. You want to know who's who, find characters that you think, hey, I like this dude, I'd invite him round for coffee. Um, even though he's like a possessed space marine. And that's the beauty of writing. How you can make a person feel and how they sort of invest themselves into the stories and what they take out of them. And I've told Aaron before, it's like my favourite story of his is a short story called Prince of the Red Sands, or Lord of the Red Sands, which is about Angron. And it's the first time, because before reading that, it was Angry Ron. That was it. He was just like, rah! And runs around and kills things. But he actually humanizes an inhuman person. And you get to see his reasons why he is what he is and why he does what he does. And that's down to excellent writing. And yeah, so that's the best example that Kev just said there about how many people he got to like the Night Lords. So in the Night Lords trilogy that he did, which is basically it's post heresy, so it's about the Night Lords after the heresy when they go scattering off to cause mayhem and shit. And the main characters in that you all sort of support, and like you love the camaraderie between them and all that sort of thing, and the rivalry. And then you sort of read through the 3 books, and you get to the 3rd book, and it's common knowledge. There's a bit in there where they are committing to a planetary assault, but it's shown in little snippets of this individual goes here, this individual goes there, and it's like little horror scenes of how they act and what they do. You don't like see anything. It's what they say and how they say it, and the description of their mannerisms of how they are literally just telling this person or small child what's going to happen to her next, sort of thing. And you sit there and you go, why the fuck do we like these guys? And that again is down to writing, you know. So that's the beauty of the written word, because you can find, you know, a lot of stuff changes through your perspective of it, but when you're reading something, you're making up your own mind as you go along. And sometimes, you know, like I've read something and then I chat with other people who have read it, and you hear their opinions, and you go, "Oh, I didn't even think of it that way." And that's the beauty of it all. Well, to be fair, Richard, the book series has only been going since about 2007, so it's not quite 20 years old as yet. And audiobooks do make a hell of a difference, because like I listen to audiobooks to and from work, so you know, an hour to an hour back, so I can enjoy, you know, because most heresy books are probably only going to be about 12, 13 hours worth of listening, something like that. But they're good stories, you know, and for the most part, if you're in with the heresy, I think I may be canning my Audible again. Well, it is. It's a story. You could always bypass the entire heresy thing and just listen to the Siege of Terror, which is only sort of like 7, 8 books. There's like seven main. Oh, no, tell a lie, because you've got three. So it's about 8 or 9 books, and then there's a couple of like novellas attached. So they're okay, without really knowing all the intrigue and stuff of the past, sort of thing. Although, if you have read the Heresy series, you get more payoff in certain books of the Siege of Terror. It stops at Echoes of Eternity, though. So, fun fact. So we all know that I've got Echoes of Eternity. My Titan Iracundus is in Echoes of Eternity as a named character, or a named thing, and its crew, or the Princeps and the Tech Priest, Tech Deacon, or whatever it's called, are listed in the Dramatis Personae. But I do also have a character in the Horus Heresy series, Captain Octavius Bruschius of the, I believe, 21st Company Ultramarines. And he appears in Graham's book, Calth That Was. So he's in about 6 pages from where he turns up. You see 6 pages of stuff as a POV character. So, yes. Right. Yep, that's why it stops there. It's reached its peak with Titan inclusion. I can't say fairer than that, really, can you? Peak Titan content. I'm afraid I have to exit stage left due to an early start, but thank you for this. It's been truly fascinating. Oh, no worries, buddy. Always welcome. And I'll see you again at another juncture, no doubt. No, mate. Take it easy. I still love the Solar War for the system invasion and naval battles. Yeah. Well, that's something I took up talking about online and stuff. Was that I was going on about, like, what happened to the Emperor's ships? The only time you see the Emperor's vessels, well, you only really see it in Mechanicum when he turns up to Mars at the start. So you know he's got his own ship. It might have been mentioned or something in Fallen Angels when the first time you see the Emperor as a character, sort of thing. But it's I was saying, like, where was that? And you look it up and he said, oh, he had 2 ships. So, well, where are they? And then one shows up um, in the one of the space battles. Seeing how powerful they were, you'd think they would be involved in the defence, yet all the custodian vessels were held back in case of evacuation. Well, yeah, the Emperor's personal, well, one of them, I can't remember what happened to the other one. So but yeah, it's like that and the phalanx having to hide in system. But it was all good. It was all groovy, in fact. It was all groovy, narrator. It was not all groovy. Not for the Emperor at all. It was decidedly ungroovy. It was decidedly ungroovy. Let's get get this on. It is surprisingly warm. Yeah. Still 21 degrees. It's Damn it. One thing about having all this darkness around the place, I'm looking for a certain colour. To which I have found, huzzah! Right. So basically, when I was sort of challenged to find how to paint the paint scheme for Fortidus, I did several sort of attempts and found that using Skull Crusher Brass first and then Gryph-Charger Orange after gave it the orange base that wasn't, because if you put that over grey, sorry not grey, over like silver, it looks brown and you wanted it to look orange, so you go with the Gryph-Charger over the gold, because although they call it Skull Crusher Brass, it does look gold, soft gold, but still. bit of touching up. You can get lost. Get rid of it. I found some, not a lot there. Jesus. I think I need to go shopping and get hold of some more egg racks. So don't have that much. That's not egg racks. Geez, that's very little egg racks. Right. Have a very good evening, dude. Are you off then, dude? You two have fun, and I hope the supply run goes well. We'll skip these cables. Beep, 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 beep. Nope. Let's get these little bits, these connectors. Hey Marius, you alright there, buddy? How's you doing? Happy hump day. Doing well. Magnetized the Warlord's head today. Cool. That's always nice to hear. And get into the business end of things. Yeah, it's basically with my Legio Fortidus engines. When I built them, I didn't have a lot of. I literally they just had the standard weapons. So I got 3 warlords, and they've all got twin volcanoes and apox. Actually, I think, yeah, they've all got twin volcanoes and apox. So I found I had a Sun Fury sitting somewhere, so I built this and I've been painting it this stream. So I had to make a new barrel for it because the one that sticks in was missing. So there's not a lot I could do in that situation. Bah. Beg your pardon. I accidentally turned off the light, as you do. It was me. It was me all along. Twas I. Thank you. Um, that's right. As if I need to blow dry in this heat. But I'm doing it anyway. Spider-Man. Right, so we need now, not that. The last thing we need is Mournfang. Ah, Seraphim. Seraphim of the Sepia. Yeah, well, that's kind of liberal around the end. It's all going to be part of the heat phasing. Majority still wet. Mix in some of the old Drushi. And holding it down so it pulls lower. Was that the last part? So this is right on the extreme edges. So obviously mostly on the barrel. But just that little edge. Because obviously that's where the heat is at its hottest. Close the lids on your paints, people. There you go. That's the heat transition of the from where this has been busily firing upon the enemies of the Imperium. And there you go. It's like it does not look out of place. I fluked it. So, right, you can see the similar sort of technique on here, but because it's a smaller area to cover, you do less towards the end. but on here you've got more surface to show off the heat scorching. So yeah, so this little dude. So this is what I would say is a very good optimal, like, entry level Warlord Princeps weapon system setup. You got two dangerous weapons there for strength, but also for inflicting reactor increases to your Titan. Obviously, because you have to do your machine spirit roll each turn you fire the volcano cannon. But you only, if you roll ones to when firing a maximal fire overcharged, then you get reactor increase there for everyone. Like the first time I ever fired a Sun Fury in battle, I rolled 3 ones. It's like, oh, thanks. So not only have I missed, because there's no scatter with that, it's pumped my reactor rather high. But yeah, so I really do enjoy the Fortidus engines. They're a lot more dirtier, filthy, dirty, filthy. Sorry, I got carried away there. But I like how the oranges and the whites blend in, and you know, for a simple scheme, it looks pretty good, you know, because all the Titans should be a little bit sort of like worn and run down. And I've just noticed there's a bit in here that I'm not happy with, and if there's some paint, yes there is. I'm going to do a little dollop in there because I see a bit and a bit there that I've missed. So yeah, so the Mournfang does give it a lot more sort of filth and, you know, worn. It's you know, you're not maintaining your weapons as well as you should, but at least I've now got one Titan with an optional weapon. Brass. So that's always good. Oh God, more. I'm assuming that you've seen all these AI Titans moving around. So many of them. It's boring. Right. But yeah, it's a good setup to have. Obviously, once the shields are down, you pop them with the volcano cannon, target shoot with the maximal fire to sort of hit that damaged area, and if you've got 1 or 2 hit points left, you unleash the targeted shots from the Apox, if they're still available, because they might have been fired first to take the shields down, and then you hit that and that. But if you've got a solid hit with the volcano cannon on, say, a Warhound, you know, that's possibly to the body. I think it's critting on 14s on a Warhound. So 2 crits is gonna really hurt, and then you do targeted shots with the Sun Fury Plasma Annihilator to take out the rest of them. Because normally, if you get 3 crits, you've nearly enough killed a Warhound to the body. I'll tell you for sure, actually, whilst you're there, because I can. Because I have the technology. Bump. So. hunk, 1, 2, hunk, 1, cannot go over, so migrates to there, and then the crit, yeah. So 3 crits will take out a Warhound, so that's all you're aiming for, is 3 crits. So, 1, 2, yeah, crit. Yeah. So that's what you're aiming for. The body and 3 crits. You can see with the decals here, that's 2 decals blended into 1, and then a little paint to join the 2, because that's basically what the Fortidus symbol was, is like a headrest on a skull. So I combined the 2. My earlier show and tell, which was the House Orthrus knight that I painted yesterday. Similar thing with I used Legion Imperialis Space Wolves decals and back to back, and that is the crown off of the blade of the House Veroni symbol that they have. So I cut the crown out of it, put that at the top, and the 2 wolf heads to be like, yeah, dog heads. Where they get the cock piece for the volcano cannon? What, that? That's off of yeah. So they are off of the normal decal sheets, the same as these. So it's basically that half cogs. So you put 1 in there, 1 in there, and then you put your checkerboards on there. And so red and white goes together really well. Stands up nicely. I did the one there because I think I'd done the decals there. I thought, oh bollocks, I'd already done them. So yes. The only downside with Sunfuse is not a lot of space for decals, really. You can put some like skulls on parts, but gosh. Yeah, I'm liking that. I'm liking that a lot. It is pretty cool. Pretty cool. Nice. Right. Let's what's on the chat here quick. Yeah, saw the AI stuff on Facebook. Got old, kind of old after the first 5. Yeah. It's not showing off your painting, is it? Really? Yeah. Again, it's something cool, but it's gone past that now. Like, I'm not even planning on doing that sort of stuff. So I need to try and track some down. I was hoping that they'd have some on the Imperial Knight sheet with Heresy, but sadly not. Are we talking like for 40k scale or like AT scale? Because they're on the normal Warlord Titan decal sheet, the cogs. But for 40k scale, yeah. So you'd be better off maybe inquiring with Scumbag for Customs to get them made, because it doesn't cost a lot in the grand scheme of things. Well, let's see, 40k scale ones might be a bit more, because I've had AT scale ones printed, but I know that my friends had for their Volturum, they had AT and 40k ones printed off, like, you know, like insignias and all that. But all you need to do is just get an AT decal sheet, and even if you like have to send it to him or get some like 4K good images, send them to him and say, look, I need them like the size that they are, but 4 times bigger. Annoyingly, I got a delivery from Scumbag for Leisure Presagius, but I guess I'll make a second order. It's that thing where you've got to do it for what you've paid out for that Titan. An extra 20-30 quid is nothing, but if it makes it look the bollocks, that 30 quid's well worth it. So yeah, that's what I would do. Um, but yeah, it's definitely cool. All right. Well, I'm gonna chop off because that's all I had really to paint. I was waiting for that stuff for the small Titans because apparently I was meant to get it yesterday, but it hasn't turned up. It hasn't turned up today either. Um, so just doing little things because it's too hot to really get too in depth with painting anyway. But I'll be back on the Saturday with some more painty, and hopefully I'll see you all then. So until we meet again, keep cool as best you can, and keep hydrated, and keep hobbying. So until then, I shall bid you adieu, and I'll catch you all around the place on social media and stuff later on. So be good. Good luck.